There has not been a wide receiver prospect like Dakorien Moore to come through Oregon. There have been some great wide receiver prospects. Jurion Dickey, for instance, who we haven't really seen because of injury and experience in the wide receiver room, I think are why his first two seasons have been basically zero impact for the Ducks. Or a guy like Troy Franklin, who showed a little as a true freshman, and then sophomore and junior years, yep, really good, really over 800 yards, and then Oregon records for receiving yards and touchdowns. And yet, of those guys or others like Cameron Colvin back in the day, Dakorien Moore is the highest rated, most, I think technically speaking, Cameron Colvin was slightly higher rated, but Dakorien Moore is the most hyped incoming freshman wide receiver that Oregon has had in my lifetime. And I don't know that it's particularly close. There was one recruiting service, and by the way, Dakorien Moore is actually slightly ranked on 24/7's composite, a little bit above Cameron Colvin, who is 0.9932. Dakorien Moore is 0.9939, for whatever that difference is worth. But the expectations for this kid are sky high. I think they should be. I am all in on the Dakorien Moore hype train for the true freshman season and the sophomore season and the junior season, and that's probably all Oregon fans will be seeing from this guy. He is that level of talent. So there was one service that said, I believe it was on 3 or in one of their scouts, that if he had been a 2024 recruit from this past cycle, he would have been ranked ahead of Ryan Williams at Alabama and Cam Coleman at Auburn, and behind only Jeremiah Smith. So that's the first reason that I look at this guy and say, boy, I have a hard time seeing him just, popping up here and there. When these other true freshmen at schools with the same sort of profile, there's a difference between a blue chip prospect or even a 5-star wide receiver prospect and what you get from these guys. They have all been expected, and all 3 of those guys delivered last year, and Dakorien is expected to deliver this year. And sure, I'm, I guess, part of the hype machine, putting that in your head, but that's where I think your head should be with him. He is a special athlete. He is a DeAnthony Thomas type impact true freshman who had 2 fumbles, notably in that game against LSU, that got out of hand. But as that season progressed, you looked in and went, oh, he's just not like everybody else. Dakorien Moore is not like everybody else. Athletically, he is the craziest route runner. I would be so interested. I don't know how you would grade this per se, but to have a route running competition between Evan Stewart and Dakorien Moore, a 4th-year guy, an incoming true freshman. They are both 5-star wideouts, mega talents. I mean, those two are sensational. But the talent profile for Dakorien Moore, who is 5'11", 182 pounds, is what he's listed at. More on that in just a moment. It's just one reason that I will gladly fan the flames of what this guy should be in his first year. The second reason is that there is a clear void on what he's going to be best at. And that, at least my view, and that's playing in the slot. No Tez Johnson. Dante Moore's coming into the fold, and certainly Dante Moore took his fair share of reps with the ones during this past offseason behind Dillon Gabriel. And, well, who do you think he was looking at a lot? Probably the same guy Dillon Gabriel was looking at a lot, and that's Tez Johnson. So you take that role out and you say, well, it could be filled by this guy or that guy. But, boy, it kind of seems like Dakorien Moore is going to have that opportunity. So I got a message from one of you out there that there was a comparison flying around online between Dakorien Moore and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is an absolute stud of a wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions is 6 feet tall, 202 pounds. So an inch taller, about 20 pounds heavier than Dakorien, who is probably going to be able to put on a little bit of weight, but I don't know that he necessarily would need to. I mean, Tez was out there at, I think he's 170 pounds soaking wet. And he was Oregon's best receiver this past year. And, he and Troy were both phenomenal in 2023 with Bo Nix, who you may or may not know. It was Bo Nix and Tez Johnson are brothers. You may or may not know that, but now you do. So I think that comparison is completely solid between him and Amon-Ra, because what those guys are fundamentally, they're possession receivers that have an extra burst. So the highlight that was going around Twitter, I think about a week or so ago at the Polynesian Bowl, I think it was the Polynesian Bowl, was Dakorien Moore making this Odell Beckham Jr. style one-handed catch where he reaches behind in the middle of two defenders and then he pulls away from him, jukes, accelerates, runs by him for a touchdown. It's one of the craziest plays I've ever seen, not just from a high school kid, but from anyone ever at the wide receiver spot. Like, absolutely, positively insane. And that play, I don't think is where he is going to be the most successful. If you watch what Amon-Ra St. Brown does, he catches plenty of screen passes. They'll give him, some gimmick plays on an end around, or here, Ben Johnson, their former OC, now the head coach of the Bears, had that play against the Commanders where they pitch it to the running back going left and he shovels it back to St. Brown, carving up through the lane, and it's just, a shovel pass concept, but you start with a halfback toss to get the defense flowing. It was a really cool play. And he can do that sort of stuff. And he works short routes and option routes, and he works the middle of the field, and he can hit the deep cross, and he can hit the deep out. But what you don't see a lot of with him, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that is a lot of 50-50 balls down the field. I don't think that's going to be a primary feature of Dakorien Moore's game. I think you are going to see a Tez Johnson style player with arguably greater physical traits because he's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit taller as well. I don't know if you can be more explosive than Tez Johnson because, boy, he's up there. But if anybody can fit that bill, it's Dakorien Moore. So the opportunity, the profile, the team he's coming into, I think it is all there for Dakorien Moore to have a huge first season for the Ducks, and I'm all aboard the hype train. And right now, if you ask me who would be Oregon's leading receiver, I mean, it might be him. It might be. I don't think that's crazy in any way, shape, or form. I could see it being Evan Stewart. Maybe it'd be Malik Benson. Maybe it'd be Jerion Dickey. Maybe it'd be Kenyon Sadiq. Who knows? Probably not Sadiq, but I just think this guy has got everything you need to come in and make an impact right away. And I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown comparison is really good, that he is just a high level. He's got phenomenal hands, great route runner, not the biggest guy, but he's not super duper small. And he's just going to beat you because he's a better route runner and a better athlete with a good catch radius and very sticky hands. So yes, I like that comparison a lot. Speaking of wide receivers, I wanted to just throw this name out there because I didn't mention him the other day on the show, yesterday, talking about wide receivers, and it's because he got lost in the shuffle, got lost in my mind as well. But Gary Bryant Jr. is still around. He's got a final year of eligibility. Frankly, I thought he'd be someone that might transfer out to try and find a bigger role. If Dakorien Moore doesn't start in the Tez Johnson role in the slot, and he's more of a rotation guy, Gary Bryant might be the most qualified to be in that position. He's going into his sixth year of college football because he had a COVID year and a red shirt while he was at USC. But his fourth full year of playing, he was injured this past year, played in 5 games, had 2 catches for 12 yards. But remember, this is a guy who had almost identical numbers to Trayshawn Holden in the 23 season. He had 30 catches for 442 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he himself was a pretty highly touted recruit, not like Dakorien is, but coming out of high school, and he's going into his 6th year of college football. That's a weight room and experience and maybe a blocking advantage as well, because he's always been, I think, a pretty solid blocker for Oregon on the perimeter. It's just another guy. It's just another name to consider, but I'm bullish on Dakorien Moore. If he doesn't start, I bet you Gary Bryant Jr. is the reason why, because he'd be going up against, as mega talented as Moore is, he'd be going up against a 6th-year player who was a borderline 5-star recruit himself. So there are just so many options in that wide receiver room. I can't wait to see how it all plays out.